everyone. Today we have our lovely Shanti with us after a very long time. Welcome, Shanti. Namaste.
Namaste, Navjeet ji.
So today we're starting a series on Rahu and Ketu through divisional charts. And this is going to be a collaboration between Dr. Pai Astrology and Kṣaṇāti Jyotish, and our work, which has been blessed by our spiritual teacher, Amma. So I'm so excited, Kṣaṇāti. Welcome. It's been a long time.
Navjeet, it's been way too long, and I hope everyone can see the happiness in my face as to how excited I am to be back working with you, Nav, and Dr. Pai's beautiful research team. A few things I want to share. One is I took a little break. My blood pressure, I had some health issues, so it's good to be fully diving back into everything as my health challenges resolve themselves. One of the areas of research that I've been developing is focusing on Rahu and Ketu, their nakshatra position, to help reveal deep aspects of our soul's evolution. Sometimes our samskara, sometimes our debt in this lifetime, sometimes our debt which we might get to in future lifetimes. So it's a very kind of mystical, spiritual topic that I really get excited about in my research. When I was at I'm the host of the Maharishi Parashara Conference, which is held virtually every year in November. And Dr. Pai and I were talking this previous year about how from, certain perspectives, we're not supposed to look at the nakshatra of the Vargas. And well, Dr. Pai and Togi and Santip and I we like to do groundbreaking research, and our research has found that when we look at these planets and the nakshatra position in the Vargas, they can reveal extraordinary things. And while my research focuses on Rahu and Ketu, it's so important to understand how they're going to impact us on the Vargas. We are going to be taking a look probably in the series together. I hope we'll do at least 3, 4, 5 videos together on this topic, where we look at 1 or 2 case studies through multiple divisional charts focusing on Rahu and Ketu's nakshatra position and what we can determine and reveal about the soul's journey through this nakshatra position in the Vargas. Today, we'll be focusing on your chart, Navjeet ji, and my chart. And in addition to the D1, we'll be looking at the D9 and the D12. But maybe in some of our other time together, we can look at some of the other charts, like the Saptamsha, the D10, the D16, the D7, some of the other divisional charts I like to look at as well that reveal very specific things about our soul's journey, not just in this lifetime, but throughout many lifetimes. And that's one of the things that I love about Jyotish the most is, we're always so concerned about what's going on right now and in my future in this lifetime. And it's like, well, really, we're a soul that goes from one lifetime to the next. Sometimes I call life the recycling bin because we just get recycled and with our new karmas and new lessons to be learned. So I'm very excited to share this research. I will do a quick just mentioning that the Parashara Conference Blind Faith registration is available, and Dr. Pai will be doing a lecture, Togi will be doing a lecture, and Santip will be doing a very long and extended lecture this year on some of his magical research. And the theme of the conference this year is the future of Jyotish, the next generation of Jyotisha, and new methods and areas of research. So it's going to be a great combination of some of the original, or as I like to joke, the original gangsters of Vedic astrology, combined with the new generation, the younger generation of astrologers that are 40 and under, that are going to be bringing new perspectives into this world of Jyotish. So I just wanted to mention that you can just go to parasharaconference.com and check this out, and that's all the self-promoting and promoting of the conference I'll do. But Dr. Pai, Togi, and Santipji will all be doing beautiful lectures this year, as they have participated every year and have been so supportive of the Parashara Conference, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. So before I get started on presenting some of the research on Rahu and Ketu through divisional charts, I'd like to do a couple mantras. One is to Navjeet and I's mutual guru, Amritananda Mayamaji from Kerala, southern India. And then I'll do a chant to Rahu and I'll do a chant to Ketu, because we can't really discuss these upagraha, these shadow planets, without first honoring and showing reverence for them first. So I'm just going to start with that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shanti.
Thank you, Navjeet. Tvameva matacha hita tvameva bandhu chasaka tvameva vija dravanam tvameva sarvam Amriteshwaryai Namah. Tvameva sarvam Amriteshwaryai Namah. Tvameva sarvam Amriteshwaryai Namah. Tvameva sarvam Mata Amritanandamaima Maharani ki jai. Hari Om Jai Shri Amritanandamaima Mata Amritanandamaima. Om Mardakayam Mahaviryam Chandradija Vimardanam Samhita Garbhasambutam Tamrahu Pranamam Yaham. Mardakayam Mahaviryam Chandradija Vimardanam Samhita Garbhasambutam Tamrahu Pranamam Yaham. Ardakayam Mahaviryam Chandraditya Vimardinam Simhita Garbhasambutam Tamrahu Pranamam Yaham. Om Brahm Brim Brahm Saharahave Namah. 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 Om Palas Puspa Sankasham Takara Grahamastakam Radram Radratmikam Goram Tam Ketu Pranamam Yaham. Palas Puspa Sankasham Takara Grahamastakam Radram Radratmikam Goram Tam Ketu Pranamam Yaham. Palas Puspa Sankasham Takara Grahamastakam Raudram Raudrachmikam Goram Tam Ketu Pranamam Yaham. Om Shram Shrim Shram Sahakatave Namah. 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 Hari Om Aum Namah Shivaya. Jai Shri Amritanandamaima. Hari Om. Aum Namah Shivaya. Namaste, Nav.
Shanti, I'm super excited for the charts.
Let's have
Digging
some
deep on
fun.
Rahu Ketu.
Let's have some fun, everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to share my screen here. And so the first thing that is it clear on your screen?
Yeah.
Our D1s.
Mhm.
So first, before we look at any nakshatra position, and I'm sure that the Pi research team would agree, in any kind of divisional chart, we have to understand the nakshatra position in the natal chart, in the D1. So before we get to some of these exciting nakshatra positions, especially of Rahu and Ketu in the divisional charts, let's first take a look at Navjeet and I's D1 nodal positions. And so starting with Nav, we know that she is K2 and Jupiter conjunct in Scorpio ascending. And K2 is at the 25th degree in Scorpio. And so when we're at the 25th degree of Scorpio, that is Jaista Nakshatra. Jyeshta Nakshatra. And that's also her ascendant Nakshatra as well. So we have an ascendant in Jyeshta and Ketu in Jyeshta for Navji. Now, when you start to understand this, what we're really looking at when we understand Rahu and Ketu in the divisional charts, it's going to show many different things. But one of the things that I like to highlight about Ketu, when we're just looking at it from a general perspective, is our soul cycle. Now, this is commonly understood in Vedic sciences to be what we call the samskara. Samskara, which means impression, samskara, which means pattern, samskara, which means tattoo. Everyone can see my new tattoo of Saturn that I got here in Mula Nakshatra. Because I'm done my Saturn Dasha now, so that's exciting. So, anyway, so as we get into this position of Jyeshta and we understand that we're looking at the soul cycle, we have to say, okay, so there's some samskara that Nav is bringing in that relates to Jyeshta. Now, what does that mean when it's ascending? Well, we're going to look at that. But first, to fully understand that, we have to understand the North Node, which is going to show our karmic debt. So, you know, if you've seen any of my presentations on Rahu through all 27 nakshatras, or my conference at Bava last year, where we did Rahu and Ketu in the soul cycle, or in Sedona many years ago, I've been focusing on this research for many years now. And so when we look at compare Rahu and Ketu's position, when we start to focus on Rahu's position, we start to see this karmic debt. See, so Ketu is the samskara. It's this pattern that we repeat lifetime after lifetime and after lifetime. And of course, the soul is seeking Mahasamadhi. And especially those on the spiritual path, they're seeking Mahasamadhi and to let go of our attachments here on the material plane. But let's be honest, most of us are human beings. And so we have attachments. We like the way food tastes. We like the way a kiss feels on our lips. We like the way that traveling to a certain place goes. You know, so this is also the realistic aspect of humanity versus our ultimate desire, which is the Mahasamadhi, which is to end the cycle of reincarnation. So when we look at Nav's position in terms of her 25-degree Taurus uh, um, Rahu, that's Mrigashira Nakshatra. So again, we're looking at Jyeshta Nakshatra, looking at Mrigashira Nakshatra, and that's how we're going to understand this full picture for Nav and kind of looking into her soul cycle experience. Now, one of the things that we understand as far as Jyeshta Nakshatra, which if you notice a cool little connection with why Nav and I work so well together, is my Atmakarika, Mercury and Sun are in Jyeshta, which is going into her ascendant, and then her Ketu is working with my Mercury and Sun. So there's could be a strong spiritual connection there, and we share the same guru. So I mean that can be clearly shown as well. So one thing that we understand about Jyeshta is that Jyeshta is connected to Lord Indra. And then in addition to Jyeshta be connecting to Lord Indra, well, Lord Indra is the chief Devata. And so there is this energy of Jyeshta, which literally translates as to the chiefly one, or the eldest one, or the one of authority. And so one of the things that's interesting about Jyeshta's position here is that Jyeshta is a leadership vibration, but it's not the type of person that says, okay, everyone, come lead me and follow me because I want to be a leader. That's not what Jyeshta energy is. And especially with Ketu in that position, it's a past lifetime karma for Nav. So it's not like she's going to be saying, okay, everyone come follow me and have an ego with her leadership energy. That's just not capable of her. And that's part of the reason why people say that Ketu is exalted in this nakshatra, actually, is because of the humility it creates. Combined with this kind of powerful chiefly elder energy, spiritual elder, spiritual chiefly energy. I mean, I don't think you'd ever catch Nav calling herself a spiritual chief or an elder, but I can see her chart and see her that way. So when we're looking at this kind of position, we understand, okay, well, that's her past lifetime energy. So, you know, Nav's energy, and you can even look at it and combine it with the moon, which carries our soul memory too. And then you see Nav's chart where she has a Saturn moon conjunction, and Saturn is in its exaltation nakshatra in the 12th bhava. So the combination of that ascendant and that 12th house can clearly show us through her D1 that she has a renunciative moksha guru, spiritually focused energy of her past lifetimes, that she prioritizes the guru, that she prioritizes religion, that she prioritizes the spiritual practice. And that's beautiful and that's honorable. Damartakama mokshanam, arogil mulam uttamam, rogastasyaha paraha shreyasho jivatasya cha. So even though moksha is the ultimate aim of life, and for those of us on the spiritual path, that's what we're striving for, that until we've experienced Dharma fully, until we've experienced Artha fully, until we experience Kama fully, the Paramatman's going to keep sending us back into a new jiva. And so we can start to understand that there's this very kind of, I want to live in ashrams and be with my guru energy and focus on my spiritual life that's essential to the soul of Nav. And Nav, I'm sure you would resonate with that, yes?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. But you know, one of those things that happens when we tend to kind of focus on the ashram spiritual guru life is that we have to let go of being a regular part of society and having a regular life and being a regular human. And so that's why Rahu is in Mrigashira in the 7th house. And it even suggests, as far as Nav's karma, that she may have never been married before. So because when you're so strictly on this spiritual path, one of the things that you renunciate is the formal marriage, because you're marrying God, you're marrying your devotion to Guru. So, but one of the beautiful things that I think the chart shows us is that we can actually see our romantic partner as a manifestation of the divine. And I think our guru has taught that teaching. And so because we see God in everyone. And so why not the person that we feel this incredible love for? We should work on seeing God in them. And so that's the very strong kind of karmic debt that's showing up with Rahu and Mrigashira in the 7th house for Nav, is saying, okay, we're happy you're spiritually focused. We're happy you like living at ashrams. We're happy you love your guru. But I mean, you got to get married. And so there's a strong karmic debt for Nav in this lifetime to get married and to develop that interpersonal relationship where she sees her partner as the divine and her partner sees her as the divine. And I can speak frankly, and Nav has shared with me her marriage is very spiritual in its nature. And that's something that's very important for Nav, because before this lifetime, she may have not even be interested in the concept of marriage, because her concept of marriage is oneness with God or oneness with the guru. So seeing the divine in another person is a beautiful, just something we can ascertain from her D1. And so I hope everyone appreciates that example and that Nav, it resonates with you.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I totally agree.
Okay, good. So I mean, that's just the D1. So wait till we get into some of these divisional positions. So if for me, if you look at my chart, well, you look at my K2, it's in Purva Falguni Nakshatra, Purva Falguni Nakshatra in the 7th bhava. When you're looking at Purva Falguni Nakshatra, one of the things that you want to understand about Purva Falguni is that it's connected to Bhaga. Bhaga, which is the Lord of Fortune. And so they say that the Purva Falguni is very fortunate native, is very blessed. They just tend to have good luck. But if you believe in karma and karmic theory, there's no such thing as luck. There's only the rewards for your good karma and the consequences for your bad karma. And so one of the things that we look at when we're looking at my chart, and I'm trying not to think of, I'm just analyzing it from, not knowing myself, pretending I don't know myself, that K2 in the 7th house is saying, okay, you have a lot of samskara, almost, because you can see that my Rahu is positioned with Nav is actually reverse, because my Rahu is in the 7th house. I mean, my Rahu's ascendant, hers is in the 7th house. My Ketu's in the 7th house, hers is in the ascendancy. So our lessons are very different. Now, the Purva Falguni energy, being fortunate in the 7th house, which is the area of marriage, means that I've been very fortunate, you know, in my past lifetime experience with lessons I've learned around relationships. And of course, romantic relationships is highlighted oftentimes because Purva Falguni is associated with its influencing planet Venus, specifically for a man-female relationships. But it includes professional relationships too. It includes, you know, my ability to, I like working with, you know, even professionally with women. My guru is a woman. I mean, it's a natural energy for me, and that's that Purva Falguni energy coming through in my 7th house, which is, I think that I've been good to women in my previous lifetimes, especially with devotion to the divine feminine. And so, you know, that would manifest with me having a beneficial relationship with women in this lifetime, and developing good partnerships and relationships to which we can support each other. You know, that's the positive side of it. But if you want to look to some scar of it, I've been married the vast majority of my past lifetimes. So when we said Nav has not been married potentially before, the opposite is true for me. I mean, there's probably not a lifetime that's gone by that I haven't been married. So it shows that I don't like to be alone, that I really feel better when I'm with someone in a romantic relationship. I want as many business and you know, friendships as possible. I'm a social person. I'm an extrovert, as people say. That's very commonly said to my friends, tell me, you know. So it's one of those things that's dominant in my chart is, you know, this is actually a typically codependent position. So one thing I have to be careful of is working on these aspects of codependency, you know, which is, okay, I love my family, I love my friends, I love my romantic partner. So let me compromise who I am. And you can see that with Rahu and Satyabhishak and the ascendant. Let me compromise who I am and my likes and conform them to another person. So in other words, let's say everyone has certain things they like. You know, I would have a predisposition to say, this thing isn't important to me. I just want to like what you like. And that's a lesson that I've had to work on. And we could kind of see that through my D1, K2 and Purva Falguni. But what the real karmic debt to, if you look at Rahu's position in Satyabhishak Nakshatra and the ascendant, is the formalization of self-identity. And identity is going to be a really important part of my karmic debt and my karmic fulfillment in this lifetime. Identity is very interesting if you look at this, because we know that Satyabhishak is influenced by Rahu, but you can see that it's an Aquarius, so it's connected to Saturn as well. And so one of those things is, okay, you're developing this identity because your identity is based on making other people happy in your previous lifetimes. My identity is I make my wife happy, I make my parents happy, I make my brothers happy, I make my friends happy, I make my guru happy. But I'm not sure how often I focused on making myself happy. So in this lifetime, I'm trying to figure out how do I find that happiness within myself? And sometimes we call that a state of inner peace. And that's very interesting when you look at Rahu. That can sometimes be considered an anxious, erratic energy, when the real goal of Rahu is austerity and to achieve inner peace, or what I call serenity. And serenity, actually, I don't think is that distant from samadhi either, because serenity means you're at peace with everything around you. If you're at peace with everything around you, aren't you also one with God? So I think that's part of the deeper journey of my self-discovery as well. So that's just looking at the D1s. So let's jump into the D9s and have some fun with that as well.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's fun, isn't it? So I have Nav and I as D9s. And Nav, does that look right to you? Sagittarius ascendant on
Yeah.
the D9? Yeah. Okay. Um, okay, good. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at when we look at the D9s. Now, a lot of people look at the D9s in terms of compatibility romantically, spouse energy. Sometimes it's used in organized marriage. I'll come right out and say it. I wrote it in BV Raman's newspaper. I'm not interested in supporting that. I want people to experience true love. I think true love is a beautiful thing that's worth experiencing in this lifetime. So without getting too much into that aspect of it, when we look at the D9, I don't like to focus it on romantic relationships. The D9 or any divisional chart is associated with the house that it's divided by up to 12. So those first D2 through D12 have to do with the houses. So the D9 is really the ninth house chart. So it's like you're taking a beautiful microscope, let's say one of Togi's beautiful microscopes that he has in his astronomy school, and he's looking very closely at the ninth house, microscopic, so we can understand, well, what's going on with the final evolution of the Dharma. Because with the ninth house, it's the cumulative Dharma house, because we know that Dharma houses are houses 1, 5, and 9. And so when you're looking at that cumulative dharmic energy, we're talking about the soul's higher potential. We're talking about the guru inside of us. I mean, most of us are human beings having human experiences. So sometimes it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, 2 steps backward, 1 step forward. We're not perfect beings. We make mistakes. That's what being human is all about. But one of the interesting things about the D9 is saying, okay, well, how about when you're ready to work on your divine self and honor that guru inside of yourself? How does that manifest for you? And so looking at Rahu and Ketu from that perspective can be really interesting. Let's start with Nav. So when we're looking at Nav's Ketu position, it's in one of the nakshatras that I'm going most familiar with, which is my Rahu nakshatra. So this is actually a really cool position to see Nav's Ketu in her D9 where my Rahu is. So again, that bodes well again for that business partnership, us working together. So one of the things that we're seeing with that Ketu and Satabishak in the third house in her D9, Nav is a very devoted spiritual soul. But let's say that Nav was a guru. We all know that Nav is a guru, just like everyone is a guru. Have we realized and awakened to our guru self? Hopefully our guru helps bring us there. Yeah. But are we there at 35 and 40 years old? I don't know necessarily. Which are Nav, so as we take a look at this a little bit deeper, we're going to understand, okay, Ketu and Satabishak in the third house. The third house is that Upachaya house, which is that self-improvement evolutionary energy. It's also the house of communication. So the Satabishak. One of the things that I know about Nav, and if Nav has ever explained you some of her passions, you would also know this about her, is she's very passionate about healing. She's very passionate about medicine. She's interested in Ayurveda, other natural therapies. She likes working with herbs. She even, has had her own shop where she's offering various medicines and things like that. And you can see this in the full evolution of Nav as a spiritual person, that part of what she wants to do is be a healer. And the healer, sometimes we misperceive it. Okay, because sometimes with the healer, we think, okay, they put our hand on our forehead, they give us Shakti Pat, and then we're healed. But that's not exactly how all healing manifests. So for Nav, it's actually on using different things. And one of the beautiful energies of Satabishak is understanding that every human being is unique, and I'm sure Nav would agree. And that means that something could be a medicine for someone, you know, for cancer patients, even cannabis can be the medicine, you know, and then be a poison for other people, an absolute poison that causes destruction in their lives and makes them disassociate from reality. So you have to really look at that and understand that Nav's higher guru self is really manifesting that understanding of I want to help people through understanding what's good for them and what's bad for them, and that every person is unique. And that's going to manifest directly in relationship to her Rahu, which I'm not surprised which position that it's showing up in, because Rahu is showing up in Purva Falguni Nakshatra. So actually, my D1 positions, if you remember from my chart, are the opposite, exact opposite of Nav's D9 positions in her chart. So that's a cool little synastry aspect there in terms of you know, just getting along and having the same guru, because her ninth house is active. That's the house of the guru. So again, there's another aspect of Nav and I having the same guru. And one thing I've just noticed is that people that have the same guru as us, it's just so much easier to connect with them than it is to connect with other people, because we just have that devotion and love for Amma. And everything we do is for her, and everything she, you know, we feel her blessing every day. So anyway, we could probably talk about Amma for an hour, but so as we get into this Purva Falguni position in the ninth house, it's about, we talked about Purva Falguni being connected to Bhaga, which is the Lord of Fortune. The ninth house is the house of fortune. So we have the deity of fortune influencing the house of fortune in the ninth house. And Purva Falguni, we know means it's this energy of creating blessings, creating prosperity, and also creating beauty. And so this is a very interesting thing that kind of has to do with Nav's manifestation of her Dharma. And we're done again. I like to think of the D9. People call it the relationship chart. I would never call it that. I call it the Dharma chart. So let me be clear. I call it the Dharma chart because it shows the manifestation of our Dharma. And so when we look at Nav's Rahu position in Purva Falguni in the ninth house, we can begin to understand that it's not just about helping people become their best version of themselves, but part of that is only possible from Nav realizing that she is also divine. And that is directly the teaching of our guru, Amritananda Mayama. She says, look for that guru inside of you. I am that guru inside of you. I am always with you. Amma is always with us. That means the guru is always inside of us. That means the guru is with us. That means we are also the guru. So, I mean, there's these deeper lessons in terms of, okay, the third house where Nav's Ketu is also represents our confidence. So how can Nav be fully confident in her abilities unless she realizes and is fully actualized in her divine self, in her guru self? So this is a very important aspect to understand. But one of the things I will mention about that Rahu too is it likes to create beauty. And sometimes when we heal, right, we heal our minds, we heal our bodies. And what happens? We feel more beautiful. And let's be honest, we might look more beautiful too. So when we begin to really heal and understand what our poisons are and what our medicines are, we experience beauty both internally and externally. And I think that's a beautiful aspect of Nav's Dharma. Does that resonate with you, Navji?
I agree, Shanti.
Now, what's very interesting is, again, the D9 is once again reversed here because my nodal positions are Vargatama, which means my Rahu and Ketu positions stay the same through this divisional chart. So again, if people know my chart, they know that Rahu is one of these strongest planets, if not the strongest planet. But it can't be the strongest planet because it's an upagraha, it's a shadow planet. So it's technically not a planet. So Without any going into a long debate, let's say it's one of the strongest energies in my chart, but it doesn't compare to, like, necessarily the strongest planet, which is my sun, which has this Digbala in the 10th bhava in my D1. So anyway, as we move on, we begin to see my K2's position in also the 18th degree, which is going to be in Purva Falguni in the 9th house. So what Nav is working on in this life, in her dharma in this lifetime, is still a part of my journey too, but it's historically a part of my journey too, which is interesting because the 9th house is the house of religion. And the D9 is the divisional chart of religion. So immediately with K2 being there, my mind goes to religion. And so I was born into a family which followed a religion. My family was very religious historically. Even if you go back, my dad does ancestry. If you go back into the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, we were some of the strongest mystics in Israel. So this very interesting history of my family and their devotion to their religion. Now, of course, as a Rahu ascendant, if you know me, I converted to Hinduism at 19 years old, but it doesn't mean that I don't like honoring these traditions of my past, of my ancestors as well. And that's one of the things about K2 being in the 9th house, is saying, okay, well, 9th house is religion, K2 is there. And so even though my practices are Hindu, which means I chant every day, I pray on Shiva every day. I do japa, I do listen to kirtan and Sanskrit and chanting music. I study Jyotish, I study Ayurveda, I study Vastu. My life is very Vedically focused. But do I celebrate Hanukkah too? Sure. Do I celebrate Passover too? Sure. It's not just, oh, that's what I've learned. That's part of my journey with this Ketu and Purva Falguni in the 9th house. In my manifestation of a guru, is that there is no one right religion. Every religion has this beautiful light to it. And that doesn't mean that you can't practice one religion's aspects and also another religion's aspects. They do not conflict with each other. You can practice multiple religions no matter what people tell you. And that's just my higher self speaking. Others may disagree. But for me, that's my truth, that I chant to Shiva's name thousands of times sometimes. And I also light the Sabbath candles for the day of rest on Friday night. So, it's all about finding that blessing between your ancestral cultural heritage and also that mystical, religious, and spiritual path which you're inclined to. But for me, Hinduism and its practices are more beautiful, which is why I choose to prefer them and why I did the official conversion. And also that is a necessary part in being devoted to my guru. Now, if we look at the karmic debt position, my Rahu is quite complicated here, even though it's Vargadama. The Vargadama position is pretty strong because of it still being in Satyabhishak Nakshatra. So, I mean, Rahu is not really wanting to change its karma from one divisional chart to the 9th divisional chart for me. But what's very interesting is that Jupiter, which is in a Vakri state retrograde position, also creates a Vargadama of retrograde of Jupiter in my chart, is now joining my Rahu in the 3rd house. And then it's with Mercury. So Rahu and Mercury are friends, but if you know Mercury and Jupiter's relationship, it's not that most favorable. Rahu does well in Aquarius. Jupiter does fine. Rahu's great in Aquarius. Jupiter's good in Aquarius. Mercury's good in Aquarius. So none of those planets are doing difficult in the Aquarius energy. And Rahu and Jupiter, though, are so close in Satyabhishak Nakshatra. And so part of that energy is my higher self. And I will have to be vulnerable in this moment and say, okay, this is the Upachai house. This is the self-improvement evolution house. And one of the things that these two planets being together in the 100 medicines, 100 poisons. We looked at Nav. We see her energy as a healer, but Ketu's in her third house. So she would actually have some kind of maturity when it comes to, okay, should I put this in my body or should I not put this in my body? She already has some of that wisdom that she brought into this lifetime from her previous lifetimes. Unfortunately for me, I've had to learn the hard way. So for me, one of the Rahu Jupiter and Divisional Nakshatra is what I call a primary position for Pragna Parad. Pragna Parada, which means crimes against wisdom. So I am extremely vulnerable to being karmically punished. And I don't believe in punishment. God is loving, but I just mean I have to, it will create karma for me that will come back if I commit crimes against my wisdom. And it's all connected to that Satyabhishak Nakshatra. This 9th chart, I mentioned it's the guru chart, right? Well, if I'm going to be any kind of spiritual guide, spiritual support, spiritual teacher for anyone, I cannot put poison in my body. And you know, when I was a teenager, when I was in college, alcohol was drinking. You know what I mean? And I've had to learn through this course of my lifetime how important it is to teach your body like a temple. Especially as a Jyotisha, there has been great teachings as far as to what type of life, and I've even talked with Dr. Pai about this, about what type of spiritual sadhana, what type of life we're supposed to live as Jyotisha. And one of those is to not consume things that are going to impair our consciousness, not consume things that are going to lower our perception, not consume things that are going to lower our, our ability to think clearly and speak clearly. And this is in the house of communication for me too. So in the manifestation of my guru energy, we have to look and we look at that for the divisional 9 chart. I have to really be pure. I have to really treat my body like a temple. I can't consume intoxicants. I have to be able to speak clearly and strongly without any ability of my mind being altered by something like even the overconsumption of coffee. I mean, you don't have to think about alcohol and drugs and everything all the time. People drink coffee every day. Well, if I have 10 cups of coffee, it's going to mean that I'm not in my higher self because of this position. Because guess what? Coffee, 1 or 2 cups in the morning, if you're kapha like me, is actually considered okay. But as soon as you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cups, it becomes poison. So this is part of the lesson for me in the realization of my higher self is that if I'm going to even be an astrologer, not even considering the aspect of being a spiritual teacher in other ways, I need to be able to treat my body like a temple and keep it pure. And anyone who knows me will know exactly what I'm talking about because I was a teenager once upon a time. And I was a troublemaker when I was a teenager. My poor parents. So now we're looking at the D12. Why I like to look at the D12 is because it's a very mystical focused divisional chart. Because the D12 has to do with the 12th house, which means it's ancestral and it's also moksha related. So, you know, just looked at a Dharma focused divisional. The D1 is even a Dharma focused divisional. It's just not divided, but it is Dharma focused because it's the first house, which is Dharma house. Then the D9, Dharma house. The D12 is the ultimate moksha house. So when we're looking at these Rahu and Ketu positions here, are we looking at our path to moksha? Potentially. But I always give a disclaimer that if you think you're getting close to Mahasamadhi, you're not, because the fact that you think you are means you're not. And I've read thousands of charts, and you know, with the exception of my guru, I don't think anyone is even close to Mahasamadhi, even though they want to be. And I think it's beautiful that if you're moving in that direction and you're getting closer, but I always joke around, if you were close to Mahasamadhi, why would you be getting an astrology reading?
That's a
So
good one.
I hope everyone understands that I mean that with kindness. But I don't like us to be an illusion as far as our spiritual progress. So that's very important to think, to stay humble and think, okay, I have more lifetimes and more lessons and more karmas to work through before I'm ready to rejoin the Paramatman, before my Atma is able to kind of rejoin the Paramatman without the need to reincarnate and have another jiva. So as we look at the D12, we're looking at moksha vibration. And when we look at that moksha vibration, we see in Nav's chart. Have you looked at your D12 much, Nav?
No, this is the first time.
Okay, fun. So as we look at Nav's D12, first thing we notice is her Ketu moon conjunction. And the Ketu moon conjunction is at 4 degrees Virgo, and 7 degrees moon. And this is all in Uttar Palguni Nakshatra. And Uttar Palguni Nakshatra is the Kṣaṇāti that starts in Leo, and it is in the first 10 degrees of Virgo. So we have both these planets in the same nakshatra. So yes, this means from a Jyotish perspective, there's a lunar eclipse in Navjeet's D12 coming from Ketu. Also, Ketu has directional strength whenever Rahu is in 10, Ketu is in 4. It's very strong directional strength for Rahu and Ketu. There's no, you know, not too many teachings on this, but I've done some research, and Rahu and Ketu love 4-10 and 10-4 because it's the north-south, because Ida Pingala and Sushumna. So we have that Kundalini energy, which is very strong here in Navjeet's D12. The Kundalini energy, which means there is this divine energy, which is at the base of our soul, that when we are ready to end the cycle of reincarnation, leaves our soul. So that's why that when they say that when a soul achieves Mahasamadhi, it doesn't like, we're used to people dying in hospitals. We're used to people dying from sickness, an organ failing in their sleep. But to those that are truly spiritually enlightened, they just leave their soul leaves their body. I think there's even videos of this. Yogananda was said to have this experience where it's just you're in meditation and all of a sudden you're through the Kundalini at the base of your spine, shoots through your crown chakra, and you are one with the Paramatman again. So I think that's kind of a cool aspect when we look at the Ketu moon here position. Now, one thing is that Uttar Palguni is connected to Aryaman. Aryaman is the deity, which is the Lord of Hospitality, right? Hospitality. And this is in Navjeet's house of the home. So this is very interesting when we think of some of the karmas that she bring in her lifetime of just, you know, if you look at Nav's D1 and you see that K2 Scorpio ascendant, and you get to know her better, you know she's very passionate. She has a lot of fire and a lot of drive and a lot of ambition and a lot of motivation and things like this. But this is actually showing a very sweet side of her, a very gentle side of her, that wants to make people feel comfortable. And that part of her moksha is to make other people by Aryaman's blessing and the Ketu moon conjunction is make people feel comfortable. Now, this is very interesting when you talk about moksha, because when we think of making people feel comfortable, we think of giving them comfy clothes, giving them good food, giving them things like this. But on a deeper aspect with this position in the 12th, because we're using the D12 and it relates to moksha, it's about making people feel comfortable in their bodies. Because the more comfortable you are in your body, like the sutra I said earlier, Dhammarta Kama Mokshanam, the more comfortable you are in your physical body, the more time you have to get closer to Mahasamadhi, moksha, and achieve the other aims of life as well. So on a very deep spiritual level, part of Nav's moksha, her liberation, her evolution, is to make people feel comfortable in their physical bodies. Even though we are spirits in these physical bodies and we go through pains because our soul really wants to be beyond this body. I think anyone on a spiritual path can relate to that. But what choice do we have while we're here than to make the most comfort in our physical body so that we can accomplish the most? And that's why we see, if you look at the juxtaposition of this 4th house position for Nav with her Rahu, which is in the first 4 degrees of Pisces in the 10th bhava. When we're looking at that Kṣaṇāti Nakshatra, which is Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, one of the things that is very, very powerful is that this is associated with Aja Akapada. It's the goat, divine goat. It has a very solar energy and is said to carry the power of light. This means that, okay, part of Nav's moksha is, it's very deep, and you know, whenever you look at the D12 chart, it always makes me pause a little bit and say, you know, let's not rush through this because we're talking about moksha. This is very deep area. But one of the things that I'm seeing here is that, and this is just my understanding and interpretation here, is that what we find in a community of the spiritual seeker, what we find in the community of ashrams, what we find in the community of devotion is people that are so strongly seeking God and so strongly seeking communion with the divine and moksha and samadhi and mahasamadhi. And when you're so strongly seeking and yearning that, you brings you closer there, which means your soul is slowly getting ripped apart from your body. And that's painful. So now we see the dichotomy in Navjeet's chart here, where she's supposed to make people feel comfortable in their body so they can achieve their ultimate purpose of whatever their purpose is in life, you know? And one thing is that we're all seeking moksha, but a lot of the way that karma manifests is it wants us to have an impact on other people's lives positively. It wants us to have an impact on society positively. It wants us an impact to culture positively. I mean, look at our guru Navjeet, who creates so much service, universities, irrigation, toilet, so much service, so much healing towards her home country of India and all around the world. And that's something that, you know, we can think of on a very deep level, that moksha, even though it would be awesome and wonderful for our soul to leave our body and not have to come back. Well, why is Amma here? Amma's here because she wants to help us, even though she doesn't have to come back. So is that the ultimate lesson? Is the ultimate lesson is, do I need, you know, even if I don't have to come back, maybe I still will because the world needs help, you know? And so there's that hospitable energy. And when you look at the energy of light that's being brought into the 10th house here, helping people realize their light does all can also mean that part of your spiritual liberation is not just helping understand that their light is just to focus on spirituality alone, but that they have a gift to offer. They have a gift to share. Amma, the divine, the Paramatman, the Ishtadevata of your choice, whatever you like to call God, it has given you a certain blessing, and it would be a waste of that blessing not to use it. And I think that there's this very strong energy when we look at the hospitable energy that helps support Navjeet's moksha and making people feel comfortable in their body, mind, spirit, so that they can accomplish their dreams, so that they can manifest their light, is a beautiful aspect of your moksha. And I think Amma has put you in that position.
Thank you. You nailed it, Shanti, because it's interesting how beautifully these charts work on a deeper level to go into that different, deeper layer to really exactly see, because I feel I actually end up doing this. It happens, and it's so beautifully this nodes are working into the deeper level that you're able to, I mean, it's pinpoint, right? You're really pinning point. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Good, good. I'm so happy to hear that. And not everything we talk, the D12 is not an easy chart to talk about.
Yeah.
Because D12 is also our suffering and where some of our suffering comes from too, you know what I mean? Um, like being in this physical body when all we want to do is be with God, that's painful, but it's
Yeah.
also very real, right? So I'll just quickly touch on mine. So if again, instead of the traditional Vargadama position, now my Rahu and Ketu positions are reversed. So again, they seem to never leave Aquarius and Leo. But at first you take a look at my Ketu, which is at 5 degrees in Aquarius, this is when it falls into Dhanista Nakshatra. So now it's not in Satyabhichak Nakshatra. So in my D12, it takes on a little bit of a different energy because it's in the final pada of Dhanista Nakshatra. Now, one of the things that's cool about Dhanista Nakshatra is that it's connected to the 8 Vasus. And these 8 Vasus all are different embodiments of the divine. And so in the D12, right, is divine attribution. These deities that are known as the Vasus all represent beautiful attributes of the divine. So for me and my aspects of moksha, and my path to moksha, Shiva is one aspect of divine. Ganesh is one aspect of divine. Lakshmi is one aspect of divine. Indra is one aspect of divine. Kartikeya is one aspect of divine. You get my point. Yama is one aspect of divine. So when we look at all of these aspects, what are these divine attributes and how do we embody them and how do we practice them? And then I see that as part of my moksha energy that I'm working with in this lifetime, is that really for me in my path to moksha, it's not necessarily, although my Saturn is in the 12th house and might show that I also love temples and ashrams and things like this. But when we're looking specifically at my Ketu, it's saying my path to moksha isn't necessarily going to temple, isn't necessarily going to ashram, isn't necessarily that choice. But for me, when we look at this position and this influence, it's about being the best version of Kṣaṇāti. It's about being the best version of Shane. That's my English name in case anyone didn't know. And that is so important to me, to be the best version of myself, because for me to achieve moksha, I need to see Shiva in myself. I need to see Ganesh in myself. I need to see Saraswati in myself. I need to see Hanumanji in myself. I need to see all these different divine aspects in myself in order to fully realize that I am able to see the divine in everything. And it's something I have worked on in this lifetime. My friend used to joke around, it's called seeing Shiva in the grocery store. It's easy to see Shiva when you're at Shiva temple. It's easy to see Shiva when you're deep in your sadhana, looking at his dancing Nataraja, which is right in front of me right now. It's easy to see Shiva in those moments. But how about when you're in traffic? How about when you're in grocery store? How about you know, when you have problem with your in-laws. That is the hardest time to see Shiva, but Shiva is everywhere and there at all times. So again, this is something that's an important part of my spiritual liberation. I think sometimes when I see the divine in everything and in everyone, I feel like I'm closer to this kind of like my spiritual path towards moksha, even though I certainly believe I will be reincarnated many, 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 many more lifetimes. Even if I'm not, I will come back and help. I promise. But if you look at the opposing position where Rahu is positioned, again, in another stellium, we saw in my D9 that it was with two other planets. Well, again, it's with two other planets again. It's with Mars and it's with Mercury and it's with Rahu and it's all in Leo. Now, one of the things we want to focus on is the degree of Rahu, and Rahu is in Magha Nakshatra, which is Ketu's Nakshatra. And even though Mercury is 13 degrees away, Rahu and Mercury are okay with each other, and Mars and Rahu are over 20 degrees away, almost 25 degrees away. So do we really have to worry about their conjunction when they're in different nakshatras? Not so much. So let's just focus on the Rahu Magha aspect here. Now, one of the beautiful things about Magha Nakshatra is that it's connected to Pitris, which are the founders of humanity, the ancestors of humanity, the ancestors, the forefathers that came before us, which kind of represents the creation of humanity. And sometimes if I compare Hinduism and Judeo-Christian, the Pitris are like Adam and Eve or Abraham. They're the founders of humanity. So when you look at this energy in the 5th house in Magha Nakshatra, in the 12th house, I guess I have some karmic debt to realize that, and this is also if you know about house system technique, the 5th house is karmic debt deposit. So now we have karmic debt planet and karmic debt deposit in Ketu, ancestral nakshatra, but then it's also in the nakshatra of Magha, which is also ancestral nakshatra. So there's 4 ancestral aspects here with my Rahu. To me, in my path to moksha, and this is a Dharma house, it really helps me understand that my path to moksha is not just about me. And you can see that, which is with Ketu in the 11th house, which represents community. But here I'm talking about my ancestors. Because my ancestors, they didn't necessarily believe in reincarnation. They might have had fear of death. Like all my family members, except for I have a Hindu uncle who was my godfather, who helped me convert. But the rest of my family, they have this fear of, no reincarnation. They have this fear of, they're not at peace with this energy that we can achieve this liberation and end the cycle of reincarnation and be one with God. And it's this beautiful thing to be excited about. So again, I think part of my moksha is, of course, like everyone else's moksha, is not being afraid to die, being excited to die, which is why I would like in my will that there be no funeral, there only be a party for me for when my soul leaves my body. I make sure that no one shed one tear and everyone listens and dances to loud music. But when we're really looking at this position of Rahu, for me, it says, okay, well, for my ancestors who didn't believe in reincarnation, they didn't believe in moksha, that my spiritual debt is to actually show my ancestors that you can have faith in reincarnation, you can have faith in moksha your whole lifetime. And so my responsibility is to continue to have faith in reincarnation, have faith in my guru, have faith in this process of the releasing of karmic debt, not just for me, but the ancestors who came before me and any generation like my children or my siblings' children, which will come after me as well. And so this has just been a little introduction on looking at Rahu and Ketu's nakshatra position through the divisional charts. Next time Navjeet and I meet up, we'll not only do 2 different case studies. You can even comment in the section of the video who you might like to think. They could be celebrity, they could be political figure, they could be religious figure. You know, whatever you want, just make in the comment, and we will consider it for our next presentation. But you will see that we're not just going to look at the D9 and the D12. We're going to look at the D5. We're going to look at the D7. We're going to look at some of these even deeper divisional charts, which go beyond the D12. You can see through Rahu and Ketu something so specific about the individual that just by looking at the natal chart, you would never be able to see. And so that's why I can't emphasize enough how important these Vargas are. And I think between me and maybe some other Vedic scholars would agree that, and actually I think Dr. Pai and I discussed this at one point, that part of the reason why they say, oh, don't look at the nakshatras of the planet in these Vargas chart is because people like to keep secrets.
Right.
They like the Brahmin caste. They want to keep secret so that the other caste don't have the secret. Now the secret is revealed. It's for everyone. It's for everyone to share. It doesn't matter what caste you are. You can know the secret. And I firmly believe in this. And so I hope my research will show this. And I look forward to furthering this series with you as well, Navjeet Ji. And I hope you enjoyed us looking at your chart. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you. This was wonderful research and presentation, Kṣaṇāti. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. And thank you for choosing my chart, because it's really interesting that how different Vargas going into a deeper level shows a lot more than just the surface.
Yeah, I liked our joke that we're looking through Togi's microscope.
Yeah, I know. I hope he watches this video. I'll share it with him.
Yeah,
Thank
tell him we
you.
looked at our microscope through the Vargas. Yeah, we text sometimes. I'll let him know. But yeah,
Sure.
so I'd like to tell the community, Navjeet and I we'll release another video like this within a couple weeks. So don't worry, we'll keep them coming.
Yes, yeah. So we'll continue with our series and we'll come back with our second video soon, in like few weeks, like Kṣaṇāti said. And if you guys have any questions, want any charts to be looked at, do leave us a comment below. Thank you.
Thank you. Hari Om.